Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a story that honestly sounds like it was ripped right out of a Hollywood thriller, but I assure you, it's completely real. We're breaking down the chilling case of David Ballant. This is a real-world collision of digital wealth and physical danger, and it represents a terrifying new frontier in organized crime. We are going to reconstruct this entire investigation chronologically, from the terrifying initial home invasion all the way to the massive multi-agency manhunt led by French authorities, so we can understand exactly how criminals are adapting their methods for the digital age. Right off the bat, prosecutors allege an immediate, incredibly organized level of brutality was used here. I mean, we aren't talking about a simple digital hack pulled off from someone's basement or an email phishing scam. No. This was a highly coordinated, violent home invasion entirely designed to extract untraceable wealth from a high-profile target. And it forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. As our money becomes increasingly digital and decentralized, how on earth do we protect the physical human beings who actually hold the keys? So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the target and the tech, then move chronologically through the January 21st abduction and the digital ransom demand. After that, we'll cover the GIGN rescue operations, the investigation and arrests, and finally, the broader crypto kidnapping phenomenon. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the target and the tech. To really grasp this complex investigation, we first need to establish who David Ballant is and why his connection to the crypto industry made him such a high-value target. David Ballant is a key figure connected to Ledger, which is a company famous for creating hardware wallets. And this, brilliantly illustrates why hardware wallets are kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, they're absolutely crucial for digital security because they store your cryptocurrency offline, completely out of the reach of remote hackers. But on the other hand, they create a unique physical vulnerability. Because the individual holder has sole custody of the assets, that person literally becomes the single point of failure. The criminals figure, well, if we can't hack the vault over the internet, we'll just attack the person holding the vault in their living room. Think about traditional banking for a second. If there's a forced transfer, it can often be frozen or reversed by the institution. But crypto custody? It's entirely decentralized, and the biggest factor here is that once a transfer is made on the blockchain, it is irreversible. Criminals know this. They know for a fact that if they can physically force someone to hand over a hardware wallet and a PIN code, they can steal millions in an instant, and there's absolutely no bank to call to stop them. Which brings us to Section 2, January 21. The abduction. The timeline of terror began directly at the home of David Ballant and his partner. Based strictly on confirmed official statements, this was a highly systematic, calculated operation. It wasn't some chaotic robbery. On January 21, 2025, attackers successfully breached the residence of David Ballant and his partner. It was incredibly targeted. Once inside, they didn't just hold them together in a room. By midday, the attackers violently separated the two victims. And as the afternoon progressed, the kidnappers transported Ballant and his partner away from their home to completely distinct, isolated holding locations. Investigators confirmed these calculated steps were taken for one main reason: to maximize leverage. By forcibly separating the victims and hauling them to undisclosed locations, the attackers isolated them entirely. It's a classic, brutal interrogation tactic. It applies immense psychological pressure on both individuals simultaneously because neither one knows what's happening to the other. It created an absolutely terrifying dynamic for the victims and a massively complex puzzle for law enforcement to solve. Let's look at Section 3, the digital ransom demand. With the victims physically isolated and secured, the kidnappers initiated the next phase. They aimed a highly sophisticated digital ransom demand directly at Ballant's professional associates. The kidnappers explicitly demanded cryptocurrency, and to prove they weren't messing around, they used encrypted messaging to send proof-of-life materials directly to the corporate network. These weren't just your standard photos of someone holding up today's newspaper. Official investigations confirmed these materials documented genuine physical injuries that David Ballant had actually suffered during his captivity. The attackers basically used this visual evidence of violence to accelerate their demands and extort vast sums of untraceable digital wealth. This moves us right into Section 4, the GIGN rescue operations. In response to these brutal demands, things moved incredibly fast. An unprecedented coordinated web of French law enforcement was immediately activated. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill police response. It required incredible real-time coordination. The share's gendarmerie handled the initial response and locked down crucial on-the-ground surveillance. At the exact same time, the National Cyber Unit aggressively traced the digital footprint of the ransom demands. Then you have the GIGN, France's elite tactical unit staging for high-risk physical rescues. And all the while, the Criminal Research Institute gathered real-time forensic intelligence. Every single unit had a vital, specific role to play. And the synergy of these agencies was just phenomenal. Surveillance, phone records, and vehicle data pinpointed the first location. The GIGN breached immediately, successfully freeing Billionaire and making on-site arrests. But, the clock was still ticking for his partner. Rapid interrogations of the suspects and fresh forensics from the scene yielded a second location. Without hesitating, the GIGN redeployed, executing a second high-speed raid and securing Billionaire's partner alive. Section 5. Investigation and Arrests. Because the successful physical rescues really were just the beginning. The case immediately transitioned into a massive organized crime manhunt led by the Paris prosecutor's office. Prosecutors alleged the suspects are tied to a much wider criminal network. And honestly, the severity of what happened in those isolated holding locations is heavily reflected in the formal charges. We're looking at kidnapping and organized detention, sure, but also armed extortion and money laundering. Most chillingly, though, based on the proof of life materials and the condition of the victims, authorities are investigating charges of torture or barbarity, right alongside criminal conspiracy. These are incredibly severe charges. 2. It took two distinct, extremely high-risk tactical assaults in two different locations to finally end this nightmare. Under immense pressure, with the clock constantly ticking, and the victims facing active harm, French law enforcement executed these raids flawlessly. The fact that both Billionaire and his partner were brought home alive is a huge testament to the extraordinary capabilities of these specialized units. Finally, let's turn to Section 6, the crypto kidnapping phenomenon. We really need to zoom out to understand why this generated so much international media attention. Because this case does not exist in a vacuum. It is a stark reminder for anyone in the crypto space. The National Jurisdiction for the Fight Against Organized Crime is actively investigating whether this particular cell is connected to similar extortions. Authorities have documented a really disturbing rising trend of cryptocurrency kidnappings targeting entrepreneurs and investors all across Europe, including in Spain and Belgium. The patterns are almost exactly the same: targeted home invasions, severe physical violence, and demands for irreversible digital assets. What we're witnessing is a fundamental paradigm shift in organized crime. Think about a traditional kidnapping for a second. Criminals usually have to arrange a physical cash drop, right? That's super risky, and it's often where they end up getting caught. But crypto ransoms, they utilize blockchain technology to move vast sums instantly across borders. Now, it is true that blockchain tracing provides clues for cyber units, but the sheer speed of these crypto transfers makes wealthy digital asset holders highly attractive targets. The criminals literally think they can extract the funds and just vanish into the digital ether before the police can even establish a perimeter. The David Volland investigation proves that while law enforcement is adapting rapidly, coordinating brilliant cyber tracing with elite tactical rescues, the threat is still very, very real, which leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on. No matter how sophisticated our digital security becomes, and no matter how unbreakable the encryption on a hardware wallet is, the human being holding the physical key remains profoundly vulnerable. So, how do we actually solve the physical security problem in an increasingly decentralized digital world? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.